Earlier this week, South Korea won a multi-billion-dollar bid to build at least 2 nuclear reactors in the Czech Republic. Now hopes are high that this deal will secure a foothold in Europe. For more, we're joined by Professor Shim Myung-kyu this morning. Welcome.
Hi, good morning.
Right. The Czech government on Wednesday picked the South Korean consortium Korea Hydro and Nuclear Power over rival French bidder EDF. Now, what do you believe is the primary reason Korea gained the upper hand?
Yeah, according to the Czech officials, it seems that the most important reason for this success was that the offer from the Korean government outperformed instead of that from France, of course. And I think that the price competitiveness played the key role here. According to the WNA, World Nuclear Association, the unit price of constructing the nuclear plant was about $3,600 per 1 kilowatt in Korea, but that was about $8,000 per 1 kilowatt in France, which is twice of that of Korea.
Right, and this deal marks the South Korea's largest nuclear power plant export since the 2009 Barakah deal in the UAE. Now, what economic significance does this have for South Korea?
Yeah, I think that it would have significantly positive effects on the Korean economy in 2 ways. First, there is a positive direct effect on the Korean economy by boosting export. According to the Czech government, it would take about $17 billion to build 2 nuclear reactors, which is a huge value, which is even greater than previously expected. Second, there are also indirect effects, which can be also important in the long run. For instance, there is a spillover effect on the sectors that provide intermediate goods to the nuclear sector to construct the reactors. And more future contracts can be made based on the performance of this project. So considering the latter effects, we can expect that the positive effect on the Korean economy can become even larger, which is really a good news for the Korean economy.
Right, so some positive signs the deal could lead to a successful entry into the European nuclear market. Now, speaking of exports, South Korea's outbound shipments seem to be well on track so far this year, with chip exports reaching a record high last month. What's behind the hike?
As you have already pointed out, it seems that the main driver of the export growth is ICT export, including the chip export. During the first half of this year, ICT export increased by about 30% from a year ago, and chip export grew by about 50%, which is a huge number. And this is mainly due to the AI boom that requires a lot of memory chips to process like machine learning. In addition, strong dollar has contributed to the export growth. It lowers the price of goods exported from South Korea, which could preserve the price competitiveness in the global market.
Right, and South Korea's automobile exports also reached a record high in the first half of 2024. Why the increase?
It seems that the price hike, mainly due to the increases in the export of the hybrid cars, has contributed to the surge in automobile exports. According to recent data, the unit price of cars exported from Korea during the first half of this year were about $25,000, which is at the historically highest level. So it implies that the price competitiveness is really high these days. And given that the unit price was about $17,000 in the first half of 2018, which is about 6 years ago, it is natural that the automobile exports have increased.
Right, and on the back of increased exports, global financial institutions have raised their growth projections for South Korea this year. What are the adjusted figures and main driving force behind the rise?
Yeah, and one of the most important factors seems to be more positive view on the world economy. The IMF adjusted its forecast on the world GDP upward by 0.1 percentage point, and that on Chinese GDP upward by 0.4 percentage point, which is one of the most important trade partners with Korea. Given that the Korean economy heavily relies on export, as we know, greater growth rate around the world can boost GDP growth of Korea, and that's why the IMF adjusted the expectation on the Korean GDP upward. And this seems to be already partly reflected by the substantial increase in exports during the first half of this year, as we have already discussed.
Right, Professor. Thank you for your insight this morning. We appreciate it.
Thank you.